Well, I'm probably gonna get a lot of hate by saying this, but Knack is a very good game. I think it's a very misunderstood game because of its own marketing. It was promoted as this huge return to form for all platformers, and when I turned on Knack, I was expecting a decent little platformer with a generic story, long enough to keep me playing for about 6 hours. What I got was something like an action game that's not quite a character action or a hack and slash type of game, and it's also not a platformer. There's just not enough platforming to place it with the platformers, and there are no combos to be considered a beat 'em up or a hack and slash. This wasn't a game that I was expecting to buy like ever. But on Black Friday, I ended up buying it, and I loved it. So, Knack from 2013, how is it? Well, the story starts off with a war between the humans and orcs, or goblins. And so one day, these goblins managed to overrun a human outpost by using tanks and weapons they previously didn't have. So now, there's an emergency meeting by, well, this woman. I don't remember if we ever got her name, so I'm just gonna call her Miss President. So the president wants to see if there's any volunteers to find out from where they got these weapons, and so we get introduced to our small crew of Ryder, Lucas, and Dr. Verges, which actually wants to show their new invention, or well, discovery, called Knack. And that's the basic gist of it. Later, we also find out that the doctor's wife has died, like at the end of the tutorial level, so I don't think I'm spoiling anything at all, and that somebody has other plans for Knack, which is very predictable when you meet the characters. So the story, it's pretty generic, but it kept me interested in what's gonna happen. Although I thought that the game played it very safe with its story, I still had a lot of fun with it. One thing that annoyed me in the cutscenes was when they keep killing Knack, but it's one of these fake deaths, like boom,
I'm dead.
No!
Psych, gotcha.
And they do this like 5 times. You know, it gets pretty repetitive when you do it more than twice, right? Because that's the reason I stopped watching The Walking Dead. Another thing that bothered me was when I would go through these enemies and platforms and Lucas and the doctor just always appear to be in front of me. When I saw them last time, they were back at the start of the level. How did you manage to come here so fast? But yeah, these were my main problems with the story. The voice acting is pretty good, very entertaining, and I would say that everyone did a great job with the material they had, so I have no complaints about the voice acting at all. So let's get to the visuals. So now, the visuals are very good. I would say that this is one of the better looking PS4 games. It looks very cartoony and has a very rich and colorful environment. The character design, I think that it looks way too close to something like How to Train Your Dragon, but I guess that's what they were going for. The levels sometimes look just stunning. The detail they have is really impressive, especially with all of these physics going on in the background, and the physics are just amazing. Well, for me anyways. I just love physics. I mean, I do a lot of physics simulations myself in programs like Cinema 4D and Blender, and I just love seeing how they work, how objects react to each other. But enough about physics. The animations in this game are really good. There's just no doubt about that. The gameplay animations look amazing. They read very well. Like, if somebody attacks you, you know that he will. There are no cheap deaths because of the animation not showing you enough. I haven't seen any animation that made me question the quality of the game. The only thing I didn't understand was, why is Knack 100% animated like a humanoid character? I mean, he's just a bunch of relics. He can literally become anything. And it feels like Knack is restricted by this, just because, you know, the gameplay feels good. Which gameplay is actually really fun. Honestly, I didn't expect to like this game, but the game just gave me something different enough to grab me, and I would say that here is where a lot of people mistake this game. It's not a platformer, but it's also not a hack and slash game. It's not a God of War clone. It's just Knack. You see, the thing is that you die in pretty much 2 or 3 hits, but the enemies also die in 2 or 3 hits. So the whole game is centered around how you approach your enemies in the situations that the game puts you in. It's not about the crazy combos, the fun style ranking system, or about the platforming. You only have 1 combo and 3 special moves, but that's all you need. It's a very high risk punchy type of game. It just feels so satisfying to punch someone in the face before they punch you. The game even goes in slow motion. Every time I approached an encounter, I was interested in seeing the enemy pattern and coming up with a strategy on how to punch them hard. It's really good. Simple but effective. The interesting thing is that you don't have a block button, just a dodge. I've heard a lot of people complaining that the dodge button doesn't do anything, but honestly it saved me many times. So I have to disagree with that statement. Also, during gameplay you collect these yellow stones called the sunstones. These give you the ability to use one of 3 special moves. These special moves consist of a tornado shield that damages the enemies, a multi-projectile attack, and a shockwave that wipes everyone in its radius, which is very fucking awesome. All of these moves are very useful, and actually they're not overpowered at all. They just tend to save you from some more difficult encounters. So, after beating this game, you unlock 2 new game modes, which the first one is time attack mode, which I would say is just very lazy. Like, they took some segments from the story and put a time limit on them, and they were like, great, that's it, we're done. It could have been fun enough if they made special maps for it, but it comes out as just lazy. The second game mode is a Coliseum attack. Couldn't you come up with a better name for that? Honestly, a Coliseum attack? It's basically a survival mode with 3 stages and 10 rounds for each stage. To be honest, it's better than the time attack mode. That's probably because I just prefer survival modes instead of time-based ones, so I found it really fun. But it's just 3 stages. I would have enjoyed a little bit more of that. In the end, you are not required to beat these since they are just some extra to the whole experience. It's even in the extra content menu. Wait. Chapter select shouldn't be here, what the fuck? Oh yeah, and you have a 2-player mode. You can play through the whole story and the Coliseum attack or the time attack with a buddy by your side. But I don't think it should be called a 2-player mode or a multiplayer mode, because it's more of an assist mode. The second player is just assisting the first player most of the time. If player 1 dies, you go back to the checkpoint, and player 2 has pretty much infinite lives, and the assist mode feels very clunky overall because the camera is still centered on following Knack, but that actually could be a good and a bad thing. Just have in mind that the first player leads the group and the other one is just support. I'm just saying that it could be a good thing if you have a younger brother or a sister that wants to play with you and you just don't want to replay the same sections because they die too much, but they will have to replay the same sections if you die too much. So overall, Knack was actually a pleasant surprise. I honestly thought that this game would be just so terrible that it would be like a punishment playing this game, but it's actually a very fun and challenging game with solid gameplay, great graphics, a fun but a little bit of a generic story that you can experience with a friend. So I would say that Knack doesn't suck. Knack is pretty good. Knack is whack. Is whack a good word? Wait, I don't even know how to finish this.
Side note.
The biggest flaw of Knack is probably Knack himself. Like, he's undefeatable. He dies multiple times in the story cutscenes and comes up like nothing happened. But he can't get up after 2 hits in game? That doesn't make any sense. It's just the same problem that Superman has in his games. And we've seen how his games turn out. Another thing I gotta say is that Fat Knack is funny as heck. He's so slow, and why is he so wide? Like, I thought when Knack gets more relics he would become taller, not wider. Another thing I noticed was that I love the physics, but sometimes they were acting very funny, especially when you're fat Knack. The physics start moving in slow motion. It's probably because the character is scaled up and the physics start acting funny because they were made when he was just a smaller Knack. Anyways, the game character design, although it looks close to How to Train Your Dragon, the characters look weird as heck. They look like rejects from How to Train Your Dragon. Now, on a more serious note, can you tell me one thing? Why does the doctor lie to Knack? At first he's like,
I found you in this cave.
and later he tells Lucas,
Me and my wife found this cave.
which is actually the same cave that Knack was in. I honestly thought it would be great if the doctor becomes a villain by the end of the game. And there are hints at that. Like when he becomes greedy and wants to get the relics, even if it means that the end of the world will come. If he does, he still does. I just felt like they pussied out of that.
No matter how crazy the plan, no one will ever stop the great doctor.
Doc, the kid is right.
Oh, 2 against 1 now, is it?
Doctor, time to let this one go.
You too, Ryder? All right then.
Which is pretty sad. And another thing, what's up with Lucas's necklace? Is it from his mother, his father? He has an uncle, so where are his parents? What happened to them? They seem to pay a lot of attention to that fucking necklace, so what's the deal with it?
No! It's all I've got!
Well, anyways, so that was my opinion on Knack. If you want to share yours, leave it in the comments down below. If you like this video, you know how this goes. So that's all from me. Peace, and I'm out.